Is my screen visible for everyone? Yeah. Okay, so shortly we'll discuss about the loop. So first of all, if you have some statement, just like here you see, like if you want to perform some logic, okay, so this is our logic, and this is the logic. If you want to execute multiple times, then we have to simply go with the for loop. Okay, then we have to simply go with the looping. Okay, so looping we have a lot of types, so it may be a for loop. Okay, it may be a for each loop. We have a for each loop as well. We'll see the difference. And after that, we have a while loop and we have a do while loop. We have a do while loop as well. Okay, so we'll see one by one. So first of all, how we can define the for loop. So for creating a for loop, we'll see the syntax first. Okay, we'll see the syntax. So first of all, we have to define the for name. Okay, parenthesis open and close, and everything whatever condition we have to define inside this parenthesis only. After that, just define a curly braces open and the close. This curly braces open and close represent the statement. So whatever the logic you have, you just simply have to define inside this. Okay, all the logic, all the statements, set of instructions, you can say, all you have to define inside this curly braces. Okay, and this is the for loop except three parameters. Okay, three argument it accepts. So first one, declarations. Okay, you can say it's a declaration, or you can say it's a initialization. Okay, secondly, we have to define the condition here. Okay, secondly, we have to define the condition here, and after that, increment and decrement. Increment and decrement means, okay, now we'll see the example. We'll see the example. First of all, you can just define a for, okay, open the curly braces and close, and here I'm just defining the variable. You can define variables here. So firstly, what we are doing, we are declaring, and after that, as well as we are initializing. Okay, here once it will done, then we have to define the conditions. Okay, but that's okay. That's okay. We have a lot of type. Then why we are using a for loop only? Okay, because of, say, it's totally depend on your requirement. If the number of iteration you knows already, then you can simply go with the for loop. Like consider 10 times, 10 times, okay, 10 times you want to execute the for loop. Okay, 10 times you want to iterate some statement, just like system dot out dot println I have. Okay, system dot out dot println I have, and this is the name. I just simply want to print 10 times. That means we knows like 10 times we need to execute the condition. If this criteria it has coming, then you can simply go with the for loop. Okay, after that, here we have to define the condition I less than or equals to 10. Okay, I less than 10, it's not equal. Why? Because it is starting from the 0 and it will go till the end. So if you are mentioning the equals, that means if this 10 is less than otherwise is equals to 10, still this condition is true. Okay, so and it is starting from the 0, so it will go till 11. Okay, so that's why I'm just removing this. And keep in mind, if you want to terminate these declarations and initialization and the condition, you have to mention the semicolon, and after that, increment and decrement. So you can use a I plus plus, or instead of that you can use I minus minus. Okay, so this is nothing but the decrement, and when you will use this one, that is, this is nothing but the increment. Okay, so by default it's increment by the 1. Okay, when you will define I plus plus, if you want to change the increment, you can define there. Okay, now we'll see the example. So this is the demo I have. Give me a moment. Overstepping, guys. I think so now it's working. Come on. Okay, so this is the main method I have defined. Now compiler will start the execution from the main method. Now I'm just defining the logic. Before the logic, here I'm just defining the count. Count is nothing but our counter. That means there is no need to define there inside the for loop. Okay, so for now you can just simply define count is equals to 0. Okay, this is the value we have already defined it. If you are not defining, that is also okay. Count, that's okay. After that, here we'll define our logic, and here count is equals to 0. I have defined it. After that, here I'm just defining the condition. So this is the count is less than 10. If it is less, then you can just simply execute this statement. Oh, yeah. So here I have defined this I plus plus, and the count is less than 10. If it is a count is less than 10, then you can just simply increment this by 1. See, so now I'm just telling the working structure. So first of all, your compiler will come inside this count is equals to 0. After that, it will check the conditions. Okay, so count less than 10. Yeah, this condition is true. So once this condition is true, it will come and execute the statement. Okay, it will not go inside your count plus plus. Why? Because of this is the rule. Firstly, it will check the firstly it will initialize. It will create a memory. Okay, or initialize 0, and after that here it will check the condition, and after that directly it will come to the statement and it will execute. So we said like we have to print the search. We have to print the search. So search I have defined it, that's it. Okay, okay, the search we have defined. Later again it will go to this count plus plus. Okay, directly it will go to this count plus plus, and it will increment by 1. So firstly we have a 0. Count value is a 0. Now it will increment by 1, and after that again it will check the condition. So count less than 10. Yeah, again this condition is true, so it will come inside this statement and execute. Keep in mind, this count is equals to 0. This will execute only one times. When your compiler come inside this for loop, only one time it will execute this count equals to 0. Okay, and later it will increment and check the conditions only. It won't go inside this count is equals to 0. Okay, now just try to print. So how many times it will print now? Because here I have a 0. Okay, count value is a 0 and 0 less than 10. So how many times it prints? So it's print I think 10 times. So it start from the 0 and it will go till the 9. Okay, and if it is a 10, if this value is a 10, if this value is a 10, and if we are checking 10 is less than 10, no, because both are equals, no, they are not greater than the less. Okay, so here for that reason it will return false. Now just right click and try to run. Oh, yeah, run as and just simply Java applications. Yeah, so it's printing 10 10 times. Okay, these are it as printing 10 times. Now if you want to check it, just define the count. That's it. Define the count here. Right click over here and again just try to run it. See, here it has printing 10 times from 0 to 9. So we can say it's a 10 only, no? Now the thing is, now we'll discuss about the while loop. Okay, so why we are using a while loop? Here we have a for loop as well. So see, this one again, this is nothing, it returns the boolean. Okay, this one returns the boolean, and if it is written true, then only it will execute this statement, otherwise it won't. Okay, the same thing here, the different is, here we knows that we have a specified condition, so we knows that here we have a 10. But in the while loop, if you don't know the conditions, okay, how many times you want to execute, then simply use the while loop, that's it. And while loop works based on the true and the false. So now just take one example. While, where is my cursor? Okay, so firstly we have to define the while. Okay, and after that here we have to define the conditions. Okay, so here we have to define the whiles and here we have to define the conditions. After that, here we have a statement, and inside this statement we have to increment. Okay, inside this statement only we have to increment. And after that, if you want to initialize, we knows that in our for loop we had three things. First one, initialization. Okay, first one, initialization and declaration we had, and after that the condition, and later that it's increment and decrement. Okay, the same thing where we can define inside the while loop. So firstly, above of the while loop we have to define the initialization. Okay, initialization we have to define above of the for loop. Okay, later that we have to define the conditions here. Okay, and after that you can define increment and decrement. After that, see, once this increment and decrement is true, again it will go to this condition and it will try to execute. We knows that only one time we have to initialize and declaration, then why we define inside this while loop, we have to define outside of this while loop only, no? So one time it is, and after that once compiler will check this one, it will come inside the while loop and it will execute multiple times until this condition is not false. And these conditions except the boolean. Okay, it's except the boolean. If it is a true, then this condition is executes, this statement will print, this is the set of instruction will print. And if it is a false, then it will come outside of this while loop and it will start execution, these lines, these are the lines it will start executions. Okay, and it will come out of this while loop. Okay, then why we are using, here the thing is, here the thing is, if you don't know the statement, if you don't know the condition, how many times you want to execute, then simply use a while loop. But here we have another concept as well, that is do while loop. Okay, do while loop we have. Then why we are using this? So in that case, see, it is a entry control loop. While loop is a entry control loop, and the for loop as well. For loop is also a entry control loop. Okay, but this do while loop is a exit control loop. Exit control loop, that means, see, entry control, that means once you are coming, see, your compiler starting execution, so first only it will checking the condition. Firstly only it is checking the condition. But when you will come to the do while loop, firstly you will see the statement. Okay, so this is nothing but the statement. This is the way to define the do while loop. Okay, so we have defined only the do. Now the time is to define the while. So here only we have to define and terminate with a semicolon. Okay, here we'll not use any semicolon, but in the do while loop we'll use the semicolon. Here you see, this is a semicolon I'm using. And the another thing, this is the entry control loop. Why? Because when compiler start the execution, at firstly it's checking the condition, but in a while loop, firstly it will execute the statement and after that it will check the condition. So when we have to use the while loop and do while loop, when if you want to execute anyhow one condition you want to, one statement you want to execute, and later that you want to check the condition, then you can simply go with the do while loop. Okay, and if you want to execute the statement, okay, initially only you want to check the condition, then only you want to execute, then you can use while loop. And if you knows the statement how many times I want to execute the loops, then you can simply use the for loop. And this for loop and while loop is a entry control loop, and do while loop is a exit control loop. Okay, and for the for loop, if you want to terminate initialization condition and the increment and decrement, we'll use the semicolon there. Okay, but in the while loop will not use, and in do while loop will use the semicolon. Okay, and the thing is here only the same initialization if you want to define, then you have to define above of the do while loop, and later that you can increment and decrement inside this. Okay, inside the while loop you can increment and decrement. So I is maybe a I plus plus, or it may be a I minus minus, and the condition we have to define inside this while loop. Okay, now let's try to discuss about the examples. Okay, so this one is done. Now instead of this we'll try to use the while loop. While, and here I'm just defining the condition int I is equals to 0. Okay, come over here, and that's nice. Okay, so we will not define like this. In the above only we have to define. Okay, so this is not a right way. See, we only knows that here we'll define the condition. Here we only define the condition, and if you try to define here int I is equals to 0, that means you are initializing the integer, and while loop only accept the true and the false. That means whatever you are defining, it will return true and the false, and you are defining here integers. So this is not a good. Then you can just simply define here above of the while loop, and here you can just simply mention it I. Okay, now I'm just defining the conditions. If this I is less than or equals to 10, see if multiple times if you are mentioning true, then it will go infinite. If you are mentioning true here, then it will go to infinite. Okay, so instead of that, here for the example I'm just simply defining I is less than 10. Okay, if it is like that, then you can just simply execute this statement. Software, and here I'm just defining simply I and just plus, and here you can increment before, otherwise you can execute the statement and after you can increment. So here I'm just incrementing before only. And the thing is, see here, if you knows the specified condition like how many times you want to execute, then you can simply go with the for loop. But just for the example I'm showing this one. Okay, yeah, just for the example I'm just showing this one. Okay, sometimes some criteria will come inside that we don't know how many times you want to execute. Then you can simply use this while loop. Okay, so this one is done. Now just try to execute this and Java application. Yeah, so it's printing now. 1, 2, 3, 4 until 11 it has printing. Until 11 it has printing. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so it's printing. While loop also it has printing. Okay, so what we are doing here is I is equals to 0. So it is checking the condition. It's incrementing the I. That means what is the value of the I now? 1. And this is the one it has printing. So this is not a good. This is not a good. Just cut this one. See, before that I'll just show you. Run Java application, and you will see here. See, it has printing 1. Okay, until 11. So how it is possible? Just come here. See, what is the value? I is equals to 0, and it is checking the condition, so it's true. and after that suddenly we are incrementing I by 1, and after that we are printing this I and the software. We are incrementing, that means it will increment by 1 by default, so the value is 1, and after that it is printing software. So this is not a good. You can just increment and decrement after the statement. After the statement you can increment and decrement it. And the while loop, now we'll discuss about the while loop. So while loop is also same as a for loop, as a sorry, we are just discussing do while loop, and do while loop is same as a while loop, but the thing is anyhow it will execute statement first and later that it will check the condition. Okay, now you can just come here and just define a while, and here you can define the conditions. Now you can increment and decrement anywhere wherever you want. Okay, so here I'm just defining int j is equals to 0. Okay, now you can come here, j is equals to j less than or equals to 9, then only you can execute. And the thing is we have to define the semicolon. This is important thing. We have to define the semicolon there. Okay, now just try to execute this. Okay, we haven't defined here. So j is 0 and j is less than 9. We knows that, so that's why it is executing multiple times. Why it is executing multiple times? Because we haven't defined the increment and decrement. Okay, so we have to define it, j plus plus. So once you will define the j plus plus, now you can try to execute. See, so it is printing 9 times. Now it is printing 9 times. See, now I'll show you the difference. See here, now if this condition, see what is the value, j is equals to 0. Okay, and the condition is j should be greater than 0. Okay, so this is the j, it should be a greater than 0, but unfortunately our j is 0. So this condition is not a, it's not true, it's false, but still it will, one time it will execute these solutions. See, now I'll show you. How many times it has executed? Okay, so here only we are just incrementing. Here only we are incrementing. Okay, so now just define 2 here. Now just define j should be a greater than 2. Why? Because we have defined j is equals to 0, and after that it is incrementing by 1. Okay, so it's not good. So now you can just try to execute. So only one time it will execute. Only one time it is executing solutions. Why? Because our I j value is 0 and j we have incremented by 1. Now 1 is not greater than 2, but still our this statement is executing. Because of this reason only we have introduces this while loop. If any statement at least once if you want to execute, then you can go with the do while loop. And here we have a for each loop as well. Now here I'm just defining the array. Int a of is equals to new int of, I'm just defining the value inside it. Okay, so this is the way to define the array. No worry, we'll discuss in future, but here I have defined it. Okay, and after that what I'm doing here, I'm just assigning the value in the 0th index. I'm just assigning a 10. Okay, and the first index I just simply assigning a 20. That's it. Okay, and after that now if I want to, this is the thing, I just simply want to print it. Okay, we know that we have a more than one, and if it is so, then you can simply use a for loop. Okay, but it is important to every time use a for loop? No. If it is a array or something, then you can simply go with the for each loop. This is the for each loop, and here this is the a, and a is a array. And what is the data type of this array? Integer. So it will return one value, that is integer. A we have already defined it, you can define b. Okay, and you can just print the b. Now here you see, so what I'm doing here is, so what is the, here I have defined the array, and after that here I just initialize the value to that particular array, and after that I'm using a for each loop. So inside that it is saying, like, inside this a we have a more than one element, so one by one element we are storing inside this b, and we are just simply printing it. See, this for each loop is slower than the for loop. Okay, so whenever you are making applications or logic you are defining, so better you can use the for loop, simple for loop. But whenever we are discussing about the arrays, okay, in that time you can use the for each loop. So just try to run it, run as, and run Java applications. See, it has printing 10 and 19. If you have a, if you have a hundreds element in the array, in that case we have to use the for loop only, for or the for each loop. Otherwise, yeah, it's impossible to define manually multiple times. Okay, yeah, this is